Congressmember Eric Swalwell, you just made a big announcement on Jimmy Kimmel. This right here is the exclusive digital announcement on YouTube and throughout the MeidasTouch platforms. Tell us about the big announcement.
That's right, Ben. I am running to be California's next governor. I'm excited to do it. Our state, I love our state. We're the greatest country in the world. And that's why I hate seeing Californians being chased through the fields they work in by ICE agents, having troops in our streets, having our cancer research funding yanked away from us when people need hope. Our state right now, it needs a fighter, a protector, somebody who will bring costs down. I've done all of that. I've been a city councilman in my hometown of Dublin, a prosecutor in Oakland, and in the U.S. Congress for the last 13 years, particularly taking on Donald Trump, helping to lead the impeachment against him and still have the surviving lawsuit against him. I'm ready to be that fighter protector. I'm ready to be that champion to bring prices down, and just really excited to take this on.
Tell us about your decision to run for governor, because you've got a great gig as a Congress member. You are known as someone who's leading the way of the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives. So there must have been some struggle there, right? Of, do I stay and continue my leadership in the House, or do I do this? Talk to us about that.
It was really Prop 50. Frankly, I was calling it Prop Fairness, because it was California not just saving ourselves, saving the rest of the country. But I've been doing town halls all over the state, and particularly in red districts. And a number of people would come up to me and say to me that, they saw that Newsom and I were two of the most effective fighters for the state and against the administration. And Bennett, it kind of just clicked for me. Oh shit, this great governor of ours who is a fighter protector, he's being termed out, and we need a fighter protector, to stand up for the state and what's under attack. As I said, the ICE agents on our streets, the troops in our communities, clean energy funding being taken away from us, cancer funding being taken away from us. And I've been in this fight. I'm in it in real time right now. So I love my job in Washington, D.C., but I actually believe is the fourth largest economy in the world. California as a nation state, the next governor is going to lead the way in standing up not just for Californians, but for democracy and making sure it still holds to get us to the next presidential election.
Most of our viewers and listeners know this. I live in California, and I began my career as a litigator in California, specifically in the red portions of California as a civil rights lawyer, where I represented families who were Democratic and Republican and independent, maybe didn't care about politics, in Bakersfield, Kern County, in Fresno, some of the redder areas. And I've seen you speak to groups, whether it's, in those areas or in Orange County. Do you think that you're poised to win over some of these Republicans and independents who sometimes lean Republicans in a race like this? Because Fox keeps on platforming those Republican people, or that Hinton guy, or whatever that guy, like every day I think that guy goes on Fox.
No, I'm running to be a governor for all Californians, and I'm the son of two Republicans and the son of a cop, and grew up in a law enforcement family. And, I worked as a prosecutor myself. I know, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat in this state, public safety for yourself, your kids, your community is a top priority. And that's always allowed me, to walk into any community in the state, any diner, any church, any, town hall that we've been able to have across the state. But stepping back, Ben, the next governor of California, as I see it, has two jobs. One, to keep the worst president in our history out of our homes, out of our streets, and out of our lives. And two, to bring prices down. People are scared and prices are too high. And in California in particular, the average age for a first-time home buyer, it's crazy, it's insane, is 40 years old. And I think we're just too great of a state with too many resources, where we should be able to say that you can take your first job, have your first kid, and buy your first home in the same decade. That has to be the promise, and that's going to be my priority as it relates to housing.
Let's talk about the Democratic primaries because you have to clear that hurdle first. I think Democratic voters have been galvanized in California and frankly across the country by California Governor Gavin Newsom standing up to Donald Trump, fighting back, using his moral and formal authority. And I've seen Democrats here in California energized for the first time in a really long time. Do you think that you'll be able to energize the Democratic base here to make it through this primary?
Yes, and I've been doing that, in our state, going into Republican districts, bringing out, over 1,000 people in Republican districts that we have to win, and especially did that to help us bring home Prop 50. But what I admire about Governor Newsom, and it's a style that I believe in as well, is that he adopts the mantra of show, don't tell. It's great, that some of our leaders in our party send 8-page, strongly worded letters to the president. I don't know how effective that is, but Governor Newsom takes these guys to court and has kicked their ass every time. He went to the ballot box to match what Texas did when they took away 5 seats. And so I'm a show, not tell kind of guy. And that's the kind of governor that I'll be, to make sure that as Donald Trump tries to pull funding to keep our healthcare costs down, tries to pull funding to keep our energy costs down, tries to pull funding to keep hope for Californians who are, seeking cures of cancer, that I will do everything to protect that funding, but also leverage my resources all over, not just the country, but the world, to get people to invest in California, because we can't count on this guy and this administration to look out for us for one moment.
The Trump regime launched military invasions in California, military invasions in the neighborhood where my mother-in-law lives, military invasions in areas where hardworking farm workers just show up every day, construction workers, food vendors in cities. It's across California. And people are terrified here in California, but resilient and standing strong. But the intent by the Trump regime is to inflict terror with its ICE agents. So as the governor, how would you address and deal with Trump's ICE Gestapo invasions in California?
Well, I respect our troops too much, and I've visited them, on the battlefield as a member of Congress in multiple theaters, and I know what they signed up for, and they did not sign up, to declare war on their own communities or to be deployed, into the streets where they grew up. That is not, who we are as Californians. It's not who we are as Americans. And I will aggressively, go to court as I have done in my own lawsuit, as I have supported lawsuits from the Judiciary Committee to continue to beat back what Donald Trump is doing, but also to partner with so many of the effective organizations who are out there, like Democracy Forward and the ACLU and others, who have linked arms to try and stop this president at every turn. Because frankly, it's also costing us, Ben, hundreds of millions of dollars to deploy these troops into our own communities. And we were promised that costs would come down on day one with this president. It's about day 300. He's 0 for 300. I think most Californians would just love if this guy declared war on housing costs, or declared war on healthcare costs, or declared war, on the cost of groceries. But he's declaring war on all the wrong things.
I always thought to myself, imagine if the amount of money and time and effort that's been spent up rounding up Americans in trade war against the world and all this corruption was spent with Trump and these people working to build housing, and you would see these cheap houses springing up all across California and the rest of this country, and supporting mental health and supporting people's health care and improving people's lives. But it seems that every day it's Donald Trump doing great Gatsby parties with half-naked women in martini glasses, or ripping down the East Wing to build golden ballrooms, or lying to us and saying, I got $23 trillion, $24 trillion. I've solved 8 wars. And I just think the American people are like, enough, just stop it. What do you do for me?
If he did 10% of what you just described, he wouldn't be sitting at a 36% approval rating right now.
Big Latino population in California, disenchanted at the Trump regime, affordability, costs, jobs, and the ICE immigration raids. my wife's and my mother-in-law, their family, Latino, first generation here, second generation, third generation people in California. It's what makes, to me, California an incredible place. So what do you say to the Latino voters out there looking at this primary and looking at who's going to fight for them to be the next governor?
Yeah. To our Latino community, you are our friends and neighbors, and you are worthy of being a part of our community and not living scared and in fear. And I want to tell you the story of a friend of mine, a neighbor of mine who lives in the same town I live in. His name is Miguel Lopez. Miguel lived in Livermore, California for 30 years. He raised his family there, sent his kids to our local high school. He worked for many years at the local winery where my wife and I were married. And this April, as he was going to immigration court for the long protracted proceedings that he had been asked to go through and he was happy to do, he was picked up by an ICE agent, taken out of our community and sent away to Mexico. I went and saw Miguel a couple months ago in Mexico. I brought him his favorite ice cream from our local creamery, and I told him that I'm not going to forget about him. And I introduced legislation to actually make him a citizen, which is something that a member of Congress can do. But there are hundreds of thousands of people in our state like Miguel who should be enriching our community, not torn away from it.
One of the other things that Trump is doing to attack California is attack California's education system, removing billions of dollars in funds and grants from the UC system here. So as the governor of California, how would you fight back against Trump regime's efforts to try to make education bend the knee and do a fascist kind of MAGA agenda?
Yeah, we're not going to do any of these drug deals that other universities have done with the administration. And the lesson I've learned when universities and law firms and entertainment companies have done these one-off deals where they've lost their funding or they completely capitulated and abdicated their value and abandoned their values, that we have to stick together. And so, I know many of the Western state governors, a few of them I served in Congress with. And so drawing on those alliances and recognizing our strength is really in our numbers and going on offense, because this guy, he only understands one language. It's a language of strength. And I only want to play on one side of the field. And that's on the offensive side of the ball. And that's how I would approach that as it relates, to education. But stepping back, I also want to be a governor that makes sure every Californian has access to where our economy is going. As a parent of 3 little kids, I'm terrified that AI is going to bring the worst effects, to our children. And then as far as classrooms go, that our teachers won't have the resources to teach them the best effects and outcomes of AI. And so having a governor who understands, that we have to prepare our kids and give our teachers resources so that kids can compete in this new economy, this AI economy, for jobs that have to exist, and also put guardrails in place as it relates to privacy and data, copyright, et cetera. And so I really want to be a modern governor that understands that issue and leads on it.
Finally, the environment, a big issue in California. I remember growing up in the early 90s, not in California, I grew up on the East Coast, but you would hear about the smog and the air quality and the past. And California's done such great work to try to move past that very kind of dark and polluted past when you would see the Hollywood skyline with all of the smoky smog. Well, Donald Trump's trying to take us back there, and anybody who supports environmentally friendly projects, they go green new scam and get rid of wind and get rid of solar. And, Trump's launched an attack on that. We've seen Governor Newsom recently show up at a climate conference in Brazil with the United Nations to kind of assert the authority that California is going to be very proactive in protecting the environment. What would be your policy as the governor of California as it relates to the environment?
Yeah. On climate, California will continue to lead the way, but we're going to lead the way as our own nation state that can't count on the federal government to have our back and to understand the climate crisis that we're in. And that means that we are going to continue to onboard, clean and renewable energy sources across the state. And for any energy source, like where we can make it safe, we should make it happen. But the next governor is going to have to go outside of the United States to attract investors inside California. And so I'm going to create an ambassador program and dispatch top California business leaders and climate leaders to go all over the world, to Asia, to Europe, to Canada, all over the world, to create a California investment fund so that we can invest in our future. And the return on investment for Californians is going to be lower energy costs, lower healthcare costs, care and cures as it relates to cancer. But we can't count on the federal government one bit. And that's the kind of governor I'm going to be, which is to understand that we're under attack by the president, and we're going to have to get inventive and leverage resources all over to better the lives of every Californian.
So, Congressman, we hit on just about every issue in a pretty efficient manner, though. Before we go, what message do you want to have on this day where you've made a very, very big announcement? What message do you want to send everybody watching out there?
I love California. As I said, it's the greatest country in the world. And we love to say in California that we are the fourth largest economy in the world, which is great. I'd love to say it. It's a great bragging point. But what does it mean to be the fourth largest economy in the world if nobody can afford to live here? And so that is the challenge ahead, to be a state where the prices come down and hope goes up. And the promise of California, if you work your ass off, you do better for yourself and dream bigger for your kids. That's the kind of governor I'm going to be. I'm going to go out and earn the support of every Californian to do it. And I'm so excited, to launch with you all for our first podcast online interview.
Congressmember Eric Swalwell making the big announcement here, a MeidasTouch YouTube digital exclusive. We appreciate you and we wish you the best of luck in your campaign.
Of course. All right. Thanks, Ben.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.